Borderlands is a series of games known and loved by many. To me, it's always been one of those games sitting in my Steam library that I never got around to playing. With a new movie coming out later this year, I figured this is a good time as any to familiarize myself with the franchise and finally get around to playing it. The game begins with a little narration explaining a bit about the world. Alien technology, wealth, fame, power, women. The king of the Vault Hunters attained everything this world has to offer and hid it all in one place. These stories drove many men and women towards Pandora to find the great treasure he left behind in the vault. I've always been partial to snipers and pistols, so I decided to go with Mordecai for my first playthrough. Listening to the voices in my head, I got off the bus and followed the funny robot into Firestone. In town, I met Dr. Zed, or Z if you're North American, who gave me my first few fetch quests. After embarrassing myself in front of a skag for a bit, I got the item required to get the vending machine shops back up and running. From there, I ventured further out into the Arid Badlands to find TK Baja Blast. It was during these next few back and forth quests that I discovered my hatred for skags. Like skeevers in Skyrim, skags seem to have a bad habit of jump scaring me when I least expected it. With the newfound hatred in hand, I decided to head into a place called Skag Gully to track down and kill someone named Nine Toes. 3 Balls was my first real boss fight in the game so far. Using a repeater pistol at the time did make killing the armored skags a bit of a pain, but with the help of some nades and well-placed crits, I managed to make short work of old Nine Toes. Despite putting my tinfoil hat on earlier, on my way out the voices in my head returned, this time insisting that the vault was in fact real and not a myth. I guess I'll listen to the voices and never question it for the rest of the game. The confidence from beating Nine Toes ended up proving fatal for me, because not long after I tried to go kill Bonehead only to get absolutely destroyed. With the quest board now unlocked back at Firestone, I decided to grind out some side quests for a bit to get some XP and level up. Venturing back into Skag Gully, I went flower picking, killed some skags, and got TK's leg back. Now a few levels higher with a better weapon in hand, I went back and got my revenge on Bonehead. With my honor as a merc once again restored, I caught Arid and made my way into the next half of the Arid Badlands. Up next was Sledge's safe house. All in all, this area wasn't too bad, only really struggling with the badass enemies, that being mainly my first encounter with a badass psycho who scared the ever-loving crap out of me as he chased me down the halls of the safe house. From there, I rescued a claptrap and finally made my way to the Roid Rage Psycho. The fight, while challenging, wasn't too bad. Once I got rid of all the little psychos, I realized I could just loop the boss around the boxes in the center of the room, avoiding most of his attacks while dishing out a fair bit of damage in return. Eventually beating him, I grabbed the gate key and made my way back out. The voices in my head telling me not to take this next fight lightly, I decided to grind out a few more side quests to level up. Snagging a parking spot close to the entrance, I made my way inside the lost cave to find 50 crystals. Whether it be my weapons or just a skill issue, I struggled with the alpha skags in this area a fair bit. But after a short dance break, I eventually managed to grab all 50 crystals and ran for the exit, ignoring all the enemies that respawned on the way out. Frustrated by the difficulty I had fighting the skags, I set out on my training arc, joining the local skag fight club. I took my time to best learn how to fight the different types of skags, becoming the strongest skag hunter on Pandora. Once again confident, I made my way over to the Arid Hills to put my training to the test. Once in the hills, I went looking for Mo and Marley. My training had paid off. I made short work of them both. It was clear that they could tell I had become a skag hunting master, as Marley wouldn't even let me close the gap between us. From there, it was time to head over to the Headstone mines and obtain my first Iridian artifact. The voices in my head told me that Sledge had a good shield, so in one of the few instances where I deviated from my pistol and sniper loadout, I equipped a shotgun I had found earlier that did some pretty good shock damage. This looks like it was the right call, as my friend Sledge's shield was pretty much gone after one shot. From there, it was just a matter of chipping away at his health while periodically running away to avoid his attacks. After a few short minutes, the fight was over and the first piece of the vault key was mine for the taking. On my way out of the mines, I received a call from Commandant Steele telling me to stop my shenanigans right away. After deciding it was a spam call, I promptly ignored it and made my way back to Firestone and turned in the quest. After doing a few more side missions to level up, I finally entered the next area, the Dall Headlands. Once there, I immediately fought Skagzilla, who wasn't too difficult thanks to my skag combat training. While doing some of the bounties, I did get stuck on one scavenger quest, though after mystically divining the solution, I did eventually find it and gained a nice chunk of bounty XP. Next, it was time to fight Mad Mal. While I did give it the old college try, my ride blew up, trapping me in there to get run over and die. I then respawned all the way back at Lucky's because I'm an idiot and somehow missed touching the checkpoint before the fight. So once back, I decided to just hide behind cover and take some pot shots at him. After eventually beating him, it was finally time to go over to New Haven. Once in town, I received a few phone calls. The first was a call from New Haven's District Attorney Helen Adet, who said that she flipped a coin and decided to keep the way to Sanctuary closed. Guess we'll need to wait for the next game to visit there. Then it was Patricia Tanis, who confirmed the claims made by the voices in my head, saying the vault was in fact real and could only be opened once every 200 years. Lucky for us, she had also mentioned that it had been about 200 years since the last time it opened, so we were right on schedule. From the point after reaching New Haven, a significant amount of side quests became available, and I wanted to try and finish all the side quests and bounties that I could before beating the game, so for the next few hours I chipped away at those. I killed Mothrak, blew up my car, killed King Wee Wee, blew up my car again in the same place, and finally killed One-Eye Jack. After clearing the bounty boards for a bit, I decided it was finally about time to meet Patricia Tanis and start looking for the other piece of the vault key. Patricia told me she once had a piece of the key herself, but lost it to a guy named Crazy Earl. After tracking down this Crazy Earl guy, he offered to give the key back if I do some errands for him, except that once I finished his errands, he revealed that he didn't actually even have the key anymore, and that it was stolen from him some time ago by a guy named Crom. Finding my way through Crom's Canyon wasn't too bad. At this point I had a sniper that did a fair bit of damage, as well as a few points put into a perk that increases crit damage, so I was able to one-shot most guys with a headshot, if not taking away a huge chunk of health at least. On my way to Crom, I made sure to also grab some of the skag meat, help out the broken claptrap, as well as defeat Reaver. From there, all that was left to do was fight Crom himself. I slowly made my way up the ascending platforms, making sure to stay behind cover to avoid Crom on the turret. Once at the top, it was just a matter of a few quick shots, and I had the next piece of the vault key in hand. After wrapping up a couple more bounties, I did a sick kickflip and was ready to go to Old Haven. The Crimson Lance goons in Old Haven weren't too bad, but I noticed a fair few instances where their armor would negate the damage from my guns. Assuming I would encounter these guys again, I found a corrosive pistol on my way out and made sure to hold on to it for the next time. At this point it looked like we were approaching the endgame and likely only had a few more quests to go, the next of which was leading me to the Trash Coast to get the third piece of the key. The fight with the Rak Hive went fairly smoothly. I got downed once thanks to the swarm of Rak flying around, but was able to quickly catch my second wind after blindly firing to the said swarm. With that, I obtained my third piece of the key. In order to progress to the next area, I needed to free a claptrap stuck in Old Haven. This is where that corrosive pistol I found earlier came in handy. It melted through the Lance infantry like a hot knife through butter. I rescued the claptrap and I was finally able to progress to the Salt Flats. On my way to the flats, Patricia called me to say that the fourth and final piece of the key was stolen by a guy named Flint. The fight with Flint went pretty quick. Hans and Franz went down without much effort as well, though it absolutely terrifies me being chased by the tanky melee enemies in this game. However, once reaching the top of the tower, it's revealed that there is no fourth piece of key and that Patricia betrayed us and gave the key to Steele. With the window to open the vault quickly approaching, we didn't have time to waste and promptly made our way over to the Crimson Enclave. Between the Crimson Lance and the Sarah Guardians, the descent down to the vault was quite challenging, especially with how quickly my ammo was depleting. However, I eventually managed to fight my way to the final battle. After picking up as much ammo as I could find, I was ready and entered the vault. Outside of the occasional drive-by from the flying parasites, the destroyer was a bit of a pushover. Hiding behind cover and occasionally peeking out to spray down the big eyeball in his tentacles, I was able to defeat it in just a few minutes without getting hit too often. With the vault now closed again, I returned the key to Patricia for safekeeping for the next 200 years and finished the final main mission. With 34 out of 80 achievements in 22 hours, I officially beat Borderlands 1 for the first time. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, consider hitting like and subscribe. If not, feel free to hit dislike. For now, that's all from me. See you next time, friends.